Welcome to another episode of Building the Board presented by Hyper Ice. I'm Britt Johnson. We are talking offensive tackles today, and there is one offensive tackle in particular that decided to become a football player because he watched the movie Friday Night Lights. It is Bernhard Ryman, who is actually born and raised in Austria, decided to come here as an exchange student in high school, where he started his football career at wide receiver before moving to tight end in college, and then ultimately becoming an offensive tackle. Let's bring in my guy, Dave Hellman, because Dave, I gotta know, why should the Cowboys be excited for this guy in this draft?
If you want me to sell you on Bernhard Ryman, I think it's just because the arrow is pointed so far up, and he is such a raw prospect. You just talked about his transition from tight end. He did that in 2020.
Yes.
So just for some perspective on what that means, my guy wasn't playing tackle until 2 seasons ago. Now he's got the talent to potentially be a first-round pick. More realistically, if you want me to sell you on Bernhard Ryman, he's probably the only first-round tackle that is in the Cowboys' range. This is a tackle-heavy class. Evan Neal out of Alabama, Ike Ekwonu out of North Carolina State, Charles Cross, Mississippi State, and then Trevor Penning behind me from Northern Iowa. If any of those guys last to 24, I'd be fairly surprised. Tackles get drafted highly in the NFL draft because they're hard to find. But Bernhard Ryman, it's interesting because, like I said, he's so raw, and the projections that he has so much more growing to do. If he's already this good 2 years in, you never know how far he could go. It reminds me, honestly, of Jordan Mailata. If you remember, the Eagles drafted him as a 7th rounder, kind of as a flyer. He was a rugby player who was like, I'll give this football thing a shot. Just signed a mega extension very recently, one of the best young tackles in the game. I don't know if Bernhard Ryman follows that same trajectory, but that's certainly the hope if you draft him.
Well, like you said, there's going to be probably a ton of offensive tackles taken in this first round. So let's move to day 2, day 3, guys. Not a lot of people are excited. You don't get that much talent later on in the draft, but are there any guys that excite you later on in the draft?
I'm going to let Kyle do the heavy lifting here. Darian Kinnard out of Kentucky is a guy that we've talked about a lot during this draft cycle. I do think things tend to fall off a little bit as you get into day 2. Kinnard probably being the favorite for me. You look at another guy, Daniel Fellaille, maybe the biggest prospect in this entire class. He was at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. My guy is 6'8".
Out of Minnesota.
Out of Minnesota, yes, the Golden Gophers. Thank you very much. Shout out all my Big Ten people. So there are options here. I just wonder where the Cowboys are situated. Again, we talked about guys going at the top of the first round. Will any of the better tackles in this class fall to you at 56 in the mid to late second round? I'm not so convinced, unless maybe it's our guy Kinnard that Kyle's about to get to.
Well, you know, Darian Kinnard, one of the best run blockers in this draft class. Kyle, take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much, Britt. You outlined it perfectly. One of the best run blockers, at least up front on the offensive line in the entire draft class. Why is he going in the second round, though? Well, there are some questions around his game. Not necessarily around his size. 6'5", 320 pounds, kind of that prototypical build for an offensive lineman. And guess what? He played both the tackle positions. He projects kind of as a guard, but he's really strong at both spots. He could provide some of that position flex for an NFL franchise. Let's look at how good he is on the run and on the move. I will get to some of those deficiencies here in a moment, but this is a proficiency in the way that he is able to lock on and move people out of the way. He is a powerful, physical person, and you talk about a mean streak. Look at the way he finishes this guy. He's already done, if we roll that back just a little bit, he's already completely washed this defender out of the play. There is no way that guy is going to cut back and give any kind of profitable move to go and get somebody at any point. He's very powerful. He's got great hands at the point of attack, and he is going to finish a block. Moving on to the next one. This is actually against LSU, some of that SEC competition. He's faced plenty of it. He mauls the Tigers here. Yeah, it's a double team, but he comes right across the face of this defender, takes him over, gives the guard an ability to get to the second level and pave the way for a huge run for his Kentucky Wildcats running back. Just showing the ability to get up, finish a block, and allow his teammates to be successful with the powerful hands and that mean streak. Now, one of the knocks in his game is his movement ability. He's very clunky in his footwork, a little unbalanced, a little top-heavy at times. That's why he's not one of these first-round picks. However, if he falls to 56, you can fix that in the NFL, and I'll show you exactly how here. This is against Georgia in Athens on the road. Look at the way he steps back, and he's able to build a pocket here. The footwork is there. The shuffle's there. He finishes his pass pass set very nicely. And against Quay Walker, who's a borderline first-round pick, locks on. Walker cannot get free, gives plenty of time for his quarterback to maneuver over the middle and make a strong throw, stepping up into the pocket because he has a pocket to step into. This is something that, at least through a professional organization, they're going to look at him and say, he's a developmental guy. However, even as a developmental prospect, he has the traits, he has the strength, and the experience to play both guard and tackle at the NFL level, and I think he's a starter day one. It's just how good of a starter can he be day one?
Well, I think it's important to get a starter day one because we did lose Lyle Collins. He was released back in late March, and now that spot is open. We have Terence Steele on the team, could fill that role. Do you guys think we do that in the draft, or is Terence Steele just going to be the guy?
I think Terence Steele is the guy, but that doesn't change the level of need at this position. We've been talking about Tyron Smith's injury history for a long time. It's been 6 years at this point that Tyron Smith has missed at least some time due to injury. Love the guy, fantastic, all-time great Cowboy tackle. You can't count on his availability. They have Josh Ball, who they drafted in the 4th round. Did not see him play last year. I would love to see him take a step forward and become somebody you can rely on. I don't know if hope is a strategy, stealing that line from the great Brad Sham. It's a position I think they should address. Does it have to be a first rounder? Absolutely not. Should they try to get another talented tackle in here? I would.
Yeah, you go out and you get a guy like Josh Ball in the 5th round last year. He effectively takes a redshirt year. He doesn't play at all, doesn't really dress out. He's injured in training camp, but right now he looks like he's your swing tackle. At the moment, with Terence Steele moving into that right tackle spot and taking over for Lyle Collins, who, by the way, he was an undrafted free agent just 2 years ago as well. It's not like you've invested a whole lot into that position, period, but if you have, it's Josh Ball that you've invested in, and he hasn't played an NFL snap to this point. I think it is a sneaky need for the Cowboys, and honestly, if you ask across the building, this front office believes they're going to use some high-quality draft picks either in this year's draft or in the next couple of years' drafts to replace Tyron Smith, maybe to upgrade at the right tackle spot. Expect tackle to be one of those needs moving into the next couple of years.
Which I don't disagree at all, but I feel like that's been a narrative for a few years now.
It's true.
We're probably on year 3 of saying they could stand to do some work at tackle. With respect to Josh Ball, they haven't invested a huge pick in it to this point. Talking 1st, 2nd, 3rd round. I don't know if that's this year. I agree with you. It's going to happen eventually. It kind of feels like a waiting game.
Agreed.
So, again, we know interior offensive line is huge for the Cowboys. We need that immediately. That's probably going to be our 24th pick. How soon, then, do you think we do a tackle in this draft? Like, how soon do you think we should?
This is my thought.
Okay.
You tell me if I'm crazy.
You're probably crazy.
We talked. Fair. Totally fair. Totally fair.
Start off,
We
yeah.
talked about Bernard Ryman at the top.
Yes.
We mentioned some of these other tackles. Unless one of those first-round guys, maybe a Trevor Penning, maybe a Charles Cross. We know the Cowboys like Charles Cross.
Sure.
If one of them falls to you at 24, pull the trigger. Absolutely. Even if you can't find a spot for him right away, or maybe if you want him to play guard as a rookie, I'm all here for it. Otherwise, I just wonder if the value lines up and maybe you go looking for another Josh Ball, another 4th, 5th round guy who can provide depth. Maybe this isn't the year you find your starter of the future.
I think there's a way you can finagle it and talk me into a first-round guy. Like you said, Charles Cross. I mean, those top 3
Charles
tackles,
Cross,
if he
come on
falls,
down.
And there's
Come on
rumor,
down.
There's smoke, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire sort of deal with him maybe falling a little bit, quote-unquote, in the draft process and not necessarily being right up in the top 10, where at least early on we thought he was a lock to go in the top 10. And Cross out of Mississippi State, still a fantastic player. If he's there at 24, I think that's the best value possible at that position. Take it. Make it happen. However, if it's not there, I'm okay with them going 2nd round, 3rd round of upgrading the tackle spot. If Darian Kennard is the right answer out of Kentucky, we just outlined him, sure, go for it. If it's a later pick, maybe it's a Braxton Jones out of Southern Utah. Maybe it's a couple of these guys that they've seen at the Senior Bowl or seen at the Combine up close and personal they really feel a connection to. Don't hesitate on spending draft capital on an offensive tackle. It's a premium position. They are so hard to find. If you have a guy there, even if there are other needs on the board, go ahead and take him. If he's your guy, don't hesitate, pull the trigger, and get you an offensive tackle because they are exceptionally valuable.
This is a draft series, but I would point out, too, there's work you can do in free agency
Yes.
when the draft's
Very true.
over.
Yeah.
Tyron Smith was this team's primary swing tackle last year, did a pretty adequate job of that. If they don't get a tackle they like in the draft, there will be veterans who haven't signed yet. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't fall the way they want it to at this position. You can go find an older guy after the draft's over.
Good point. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning into Building the Board Offensive Tackles. Dave Hellman, Kyle Yeomans, Britt Johnson. We'll see you guys soon.